a big hello from Portland, Oregon. Yes! Welcome to another episode of B2B Marketing and More with me, Pam. Yes! I'm so happy to be here. Today, I have an awesome guest, and his name is Kyle Roof. He is the founder of High Voltage SEO. I guess the voltage is so high, you're going to get electrified today. By the way, his company actually have a specific product that related to SEO that he offers. It's called Page Optimizer Pro, and he's going to tell us what that is. And it has been used by over 1,000 SEO and marketing agency around the world. So we're going to find that out. So welcome, Kyle. So happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Pam. It was great to be here.
So why is SEO important?
I think the most obvious thing is that it boosts your online visibility. If you build a beautiful website and then you don't do any SEO, I think it's the equivalent of building a very beautiful sign for your business and putting it in the basement. You should build a beautiful website, but if you're not SEOing it or you don't have any SEO plan, it's really not going to do much for you other than just be kind of a business card that you can pass around to people one by one.
Is it, SEO is just like, okay, let's add a bunch of keywords to our website and then we call it SEO optimized?
No, there's a lot more to it than that. And that's actually another benefit of doing SEO is that when you're building a site, it's very similar to writing a book. There's so much that needs to go into the organization of it. And SEO can provide that framework. So you
Yeah.
can write a better book, tell a better story.
It's a writing book you need to build a structure. You need to have an outline. What you are saying is while you're building your website, it's kind of like constructing your website, and SEO can help you to build a better structure in addition to just have the right keywords. But you have to think through in terms of where the keywords will fit and where that should be. Would you agree?
That's exactly right. And then also not just the particular keywords, but what types of pages are we building for our site? There are different personas. The people that are going to come to your site, they're going to resonate with different things. There needs to be different sections on your site for the different people that might be coming who would be interested in your products or services. And you have to have a plan for that. You have to have a plan to grow the site in the right way. In the same way, you need to grow your site's authority. And you can do that through the content that you're putting on the site within an SEO plan, because you want your site to be seen as more authoritative to Google. And in doing so, SEO can help you provide that guidance as well, so that you can rank for better keywords, so that you can get more traffic, so that hopefully as you're getting more traffic, then you're getting more conversions.
I have done SEO for my own website, and I have discovered SEO can be so hard because there are so many elements that you have and the factors you have to take into account. It's, in the past, it's like, oh, that's use keywords. But it's more to it. So can you share with us and what are some of the minimal requirements that small business owners or anybody is managing a website that they have to take into account in terms of a search engine optimization?
One thing that I do is that I run tests on Google's algorithm, and I'm continually running tests on the algorithm to see what is or is not a ranking factor and which factors are the strongest. And what's interesting is that the basics of SEO stay relatively the same, and they are still also the strongest factors. So the most important ones would be your page title, the title tag. So that's often referred to as the meta title. Your H1, which is the title that humans see, in paragraph tags, P tags, and within the URL. And if you can put your keyword in those 4 places, you've done probably 60 to 70% of SEO right then and there. If you have an older page, don't change your URL. If you have an older page that's doing pretty well, leave that as is. But if you're doing a brand new page, then you want to make sure to get your target keyword in there.
It's actually good to know. I love that because I did try to change my URL early on when I started, and that was a huge mistake because it cost 404 error, and it's very hard to actually find. And so once you have established URL, keep the URL the way it is. If nothing else, do a redirect. Would you agree?
Exactly right. The other thing too is that a new URL is a new page to Google. So it has to recrawl it. So even though you're like, well, I've had this page for years, Google will just see that all I did was change the URL, but Google doesn't know that. To Google, it's a completely different page and has to completely recrawl it and re-index it and then re-rank it. So you're kind of starting from zero.
So for longest time, marketers have this tendency of checking something off and then move on to, another brand new thing. So is SEO something that you can check it off ever?
Well, the problem is that the goalposts shift. So as new competitors come into the space, as Google does updates, things like that, the goalposts shift, and you need to check the work that you've done to make sure that you're still on hitting the targets that are needed for SEO. That's one of the more frustrating parts of it, is that you can write a perfect page today, and things might shift a little bit. And while you're not far away from it, you still probably need to tweak things just a touch.
So what you are saying is, even a lot of time the marketers will create content like a blog post, and they will create new blog posts. They will create more blog posts. Your suggestion is basically, from time to time, you actually have to go back and look at your existing blog post, and you have to optimize it as time goes.
It's tweaks more than like a wholesale optimization, but yeah, you do want to check your work, because what you'll notice is that there are new competitors in town, or Google is favoring something else slightly more so than it was before. And so you want to make sure that you're still kind of hitting all those targets, or giving Google what it wants.
So in a way, you cannot check off SEO.
And that's why I continue to be employed. I love Google updates. When change happens, that's just better for me.
Every time like change happened, I was like, oh my God, what do I need to know? How do I get myself up to date, in terms of keeping up with the Google's update, or even some of the technologies out there? It's so overwhelming sometimes. So that leads to my next question. Can this SEO stuff be done by, even in-house marketers, or do they have to really partner with a SEO agency or SEO expert? Can SEO be DIY?
Yeah, I think what it comes down to more than anything is an understanding that SEO is a probabilities game. You need to put yourself into the position for the best opportunity for success. No SEO professional is going to be right 100% of the time, but the idea is that the most successful ones are probably right 70 to 80% of the time. So it's better than a coin flip. And so if you can get yourself into a position where you're better than a coin flip, then sure, you can definitely do your own SEO. And then the idea of going with a professional or going with an agency is that it increases your likelihood of success.
Obviously, as a small business owner, I have limited amount of marketing budget. I allocate that to do many, many things. And SEO is not necessarily made it to the list initially. And then I try to educate myself about SEO and also the different tools out there. And I purchase tool and I try to do it myself. But I have to tell everyone, it's actually, if you have a budget and if you don't have time, find a good SEO expert or work with the SEO agency. So do you have any suggestion in terms of how to select a good, solid SEO agency?
One thing that you should be able to get from the agency is kind of how to do SEO. The agency should be completely transparent in what they're doing. And so their strategy should be, you should know exactly what's going on, exactly the strategy and what the expected outcomes are, so that in fact, you yourself then could learn SEO by watching how the strategy is implemented and how it unfolds. So transparency is the biggest thing. Are they showing you exactly what they're going to do? Maybe not perhaps the specific technique, but you will see the outcome. If they put something here on the web, or they put something on your site, that you're able to see it and evaluate it and understand what it is. So transparency, and then also communication. Are they regularly communicating what's happening?
How often should the client demand that SEO provide the dashboard?
Well, in our agency, we do a report and a meeting at the end of the month or beginning of the month, with the idea of like, this is what we're going to do. Here are your problems, here are your goals. Here's what we're trying to accomplish. These are the techniques that we think will get there. Then we do them. And then throughout the month, you'll get a couple updates. Hey, we're working on this, or we're doing that. And then at the end of the month, it's a discussion of, this is what we did. So we then show the work. And then for the upcoming month, then we need to stay on this track, and we need to continue to do this because we can see X, Y, or Z, or we need to shift just a little bit because we noticed whatever. But then these are now the deliverables, so that each month what should be delivered and what should be provided, and that there's monitoring and tracking to that as well.
What are some common KPIs would you suggest that the clients do track or work with their agencies?
One of the most important measurements is impressions. Impressions are the amount of times your site is seen by humans doing searches. To grow impressions, healthy websites, healthy pages on websites are gaining more keywords. When you properly optimize for a primary keyword, so whatever your top level product or services, cybersecurity, what's going to happen is that cybersecurity page is going to rank for hundreds, if not more, if not into the thousands of related keywords. We call them secondary keywords, or the cluster. Yeah, cybersecurity is just like a 2-word phrase, right?
Right.
So you will start winning. You'll see like these 3 and 4 word phrases you're ranking for, and some of them don't even exist on the page. Most don't even exist on the page. And that's because Google has associated this chunk of terms with this primary keyword. So you optimize for that primary keyword and you start to win the chunk. And then you'll see that a healthy page is now growing more and more of those keywords, even though they don't exist on the page at all. And then now you're getting impressions for those keywords. You're getting seen more. And then as you're seen more, you're getting more clicks. So those are the 3 most important KPIs are how many keywords your page is ranking for, how many impressions you're getting, and then how many clicks you're getting. The only other thing to throw in on, you do need to be mindful of conversions.
I was thinking, oh, these are very top of the funnel type of the
Yeah.
KPI, and it really doesn't help conversion at all. You can talk about the number of impression with the senior management. You can talk about number of clicks with senior management. They don't really care. What they care is what is the conversion rate. How many of them are actually being qualified as a marketing qualified leads, and how many of them being converted to sales qualified leads. The conversion matters. Then talk to me in terms of how SEO can help in terms of conversion.
Well, ultimately, it's a number game. It's a numbers game. You understand, like you should know how many visitors turn into a conversion.
The people come to your website. If you know the IP address, or if somehow you can identify the contact name, and the contact name can somehow be reconciled with your marketing automation database or your CRM database, then that will come to light in terms of seeing like, oh, the person who coming in, I actually have a name associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
If you can have that, then you can actually easily identify how is that person moving, through your purchase funnel. If you just only have an IP address, or if you just know number of clicks, that's not going to help.
The thing that you identified there, though, is kind of what gets slightly outside. It's kind of SEO adjacent, where now you're talking about what call to action, what conversion points, what micro conversions are we having, or are we enabling for this traffic to have? And that usually turns into a giant hole in the marketing strategy where we're getting all this good traffic, and we know it's good traffic because we can see the keywords that are bringing the traffic, and they're the ones that we want, and then in the right neighborhood, but people aren't converting. So now we've got an issue of is there a problem with this page? That the people won't convert on this page for some reason. Is there a problem with the messaging? Is there a problem? Do people hate the product, or do people hate the service? Which happens. But SEO can then highlight those issues where when you realize like, hey, we're getting all of this traffic, but it's not converting. Why is that? Especially when you can see that, okay, we're not getting weird keywords, right? People aren't coming from things we don't want. They're coming from exactly what we want. From time to time, that's something that happens within Google too, where you build a page for a specific keyword and you think you're going to get this type of traffic, but Google actually associates that term with something slightly off. And then what happens is you get a whole bunch of traffic, but it's the wrong type of traffic. So like you're like, oh man, like we're killing it, but it's not people that would convert or the people that we want to get. So that does happen from time to time for sure. More often than not, if you're getting the right type of traffic and you're not getting the conversions that you're anticipating, then there's something else you can look at.
Another element of SEO is you need to constantly either update, refresh, or even add new content to your website. Is that true?
Well, what I think you should be doing is adding content to elevate your own authority. So going after, as you said, longer tail keywords is an example, longer phrased keywords that are in the neighborhood of what you want, and they answer good questions related to your topic, your service, your products, etc. But they aren't exactly target pages. They aren't pages that you don't necessarily want somebody to convert on this page. But it's the kind of thing that where you can give a really good answer or a really good explanation about something that's related to your product and service. You should be creating that content continually.
But most of the time you are talking about SEO, it tend to be text driven. What about, podcasts, which is more audio driven? I write a summary, I make it look nice, but it really doesn't help in terms of domain authority per se. I have discovered in terms of the podcast, it seems like you really have to create blog posts to increase that. Is that true?
So that's where you might want to consider using more of the transcript, because that's going to be free content for you that you didn't have to write. Often though, it looks gross, right? So you don't necessarily have to just have a wall of text on your page. You can break it up within sliders and drop downs. You can be creative with your CSS. The only thing that Google requires is that you're not trying to cloak or hide the text, so that Google only sees it, but humans don't. So if humans have the ability to see it and it's obvious that they can see it, then you're within Google's guidelines. And again, remember the basics though. So think about, what is this podcast episode about, right? And then, you want to think about a target keyword that somebody actually might be searching for that particular information. And then that would go into your meta title, your page title, your H1 within the paragraph text. So make sure that it's in that transcript. And if it's not, then that can be part of your description, and then it's in the URL. And then you've hit some of your basics from there. But
Okay, so tell us where they can find you, and also tell us a little bit about your page optimizer.
that's actually probably the best place to find me. If somebody goes to pageoptimizer.pro, which is the website, if they scroll to the bottom in the footer, there's a workshop. I do a free workshop, whether you're a pop user or not. And it alternates on Tuesdays and Thursdays. There's a section that's recorded at the beginning that kind of explains how to do SEO, and then also how the tool can help you with that. And then I come on live on each one of them to answer any all questions. And that can be questions about using Page Optimizer Pro, or it can just be about SEO. I mean, if people like what I talk about, if they like the concepts, then they'll like the tool. The tool will be useful for them. But if you're like, I don't know about this math stuff, or I don't know, then that's not your tool. And that's totally fine. But I'm still happy to answer any and all SEO questions.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Well, thank you so much for coming to my show. Really appreciate it. And I know that is a very early there, and you got up early to actually have a chat with me, which is my, the Pacific Standard Time Zone. So happy to have you, and good luck.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.